was getting a lot too, so.
Yeah, and it's like 60 something degrees here outside of DC.
I know, my husband was telling me it was like in the 70s down in Pennsylvania, so.
My sister was saying it was hailing in San Diego yesterday.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yes.
So have either of you done one of these before?
I have
No.
not.
Thing new to me with SSPI. Dang. What about yourself?
I have not. So Rosario asked me to come help out with this. So I was pretty excited to get the opportunity to get to meet some people and get to know a little bit more about the group. So pretty excited.
I've heard so much from Betty and I think from seeing the post on LinkedIn. So it's quite nice to actually be asked. So thanks, Tamara.
Yeah, SSPI has been around for a while, but SSPI-WISE we started in December of 2020.
Oh wow.
So near the year of COVID, just women from across the industry all came together to do all of this. Yeah, and
That's
if you haven't seen, if you
really
go on the
cool.
SSPI-WISE site, you can see some of the previous talks as well.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
I saw that when I was just kind of doing some research. I saw that there were some other videos that were up there. So it's great.
And it's amazing because it's all motivated women from across the industry working on this together.
I'm getting ready to, I don't know if am I on mute?
No.
Nope, we can hear you.
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I am getting ready. Let's see. I'm going to put this in the chat so that we have it. This is a link to SSPI-WISE. Let me send this to everybody in the meeting. And yeah, so Jomia, you missed me having this moment of slight panic because I'm still me. So it's like, oh my goodness, I do have to be the moderator. But I was sharing that this is one of the blessings and benefits of having an SSPI-WISE is that we women sometimes have to step up where it would have been easier to hide and kind of be in the background. And so I get to benefit from having to step up and be the moderator today. So very happy to be here. Okay, folks, as we're letting people in, first of all, welcome. I'm very happy to see everybody showing up. Okay, you don't have to. You can go and take care of that, Maria. But we are we are going to be having a really interesting, I think, conversation with three amazing professional women in our industry. And but while that conversation is happening, you are actually going to be on mute and will remain on mute until we open up the floor for questions from the audience. So if you wish to post any questions to make sure that they definitely get asked, please go ahead and post them in the chat. We welcome the conversation to continue in the chat while we're going on. Don't necessarily have to hear all the news about whether or not you need a bathroom break, but you know, feel free to share if you really feel the need to. And we're going to get started. How's that? All right, I am going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to share my screen. Yes. Okay. And let's see. Okay. So we are at the 2-minute mark. I'm going to give us just a couple more minutes to see if we can see if Deborah Factor, our fearless chairwoman, will be able to make it.
Looks like
She
Deborah just
she
hopped on
is
if you want to.
here. All right, Deborah, I'm making you a co-host so that you can unmute. And I'm also going to spotlight you, and I'm going to stop sharing so you can welcome us. How's that?
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tamara and Jamia. Hopefully, can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you very well.
All right, so welcome to our SSPI-WISE open meeting of February. I think it's our first open meeting of the year, so really fun to kick off 2023. For those of you who've been to some of our events before, you know that we've got a number of working groups who are addressing a variety of grassroots activities across our community, from mentoring to networking to sustainability. And this one in oops, you didn't see that. STEM education, and this one in particular is hosted by our Elevating Women working group. So you'll hear a little bit more from Nagar and Susan in a bit. So just wanted to kick off. This is our Women and the Digital Divide, and we've got a fantastic program pulled together, and I'm super excited to hear some of what is the digital divide and how do gender issues fit into it, economic issues, etc. So I'll leave it at that and pass it over to Nagar and Susan to tell you about our Elevating Women working group and introducing our panel. And I think Tamara is going to moderate today. So thanks for joining us all, and also look forward to seeing many of you at Satellite 2023. Next month, we'll have an SSPI-WISE networking reception at the Marriott Marquis on Monday. And we'll get a little bit more information about that in our LinkedIn group as well. So over to you, Nagar and Susan. Or Tamara, whoever's doing it first.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be
There you
Nagar and
go.
Susan, but
Is
we're
it back
just gonna,
to you?
It's going to be because Nagar and Susan are not here yet.
Oh, well, then never mind. Over to you, Tamara, our wonderful lead of SSPI-WISE on the staff and the director of all the engagement activities. So perfect solution. Thank you. And over to you.
Thank you. Well, I do want to say a couple of words about Elevating Women Working Group, if I may. In Susan and Nagar's absence, or temporary absence. I hope they make it. But Elevating Working Group is specifically has the mandate of making sure that we raise the profile of women in the industry. And the way that this is done is by helping to make sure that women are included, and that we advocate for women to be included in various panels, in industry panels that happen throughout the year. We are actively inviting and continue to invite women to give us your profile, your level of expertise, your level of comfort, and what do you like to talk about, so that when there are opportunities to find speakers in the industry, we can help the various industry shows find you. Again, I will say this for the benefit of everybody hearing, we as women have to actually take the opportunities to put ourselves forward in ways that sometimes we're not accustomed to. And we're used to kind of staying back sometimes. And, you know, all the words, lean forward, lean in, or however it goes, we actually have to do it, right? And so Elevating Women is that group that helps us do it. But also, they also are mandated with raising the profile of women and the concerns of women so that women can succeed. And it is with that idea in mind that this panel session is happening, where we get to talk about the digital divide and how it impacts women specific. So I'm very grateful that the Elevating Women Working Group worked with me and allowed us to pull this panel session together. I am, as was mentioned, my name is Tamara Bond Williams. I am the Director of Engagement for SSPI. And I am, in fact, the only female staff member of SSPI. So there you go. Here's us elevating women. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be able to play a role in making sure that SSPI-WISE continues to succeed. Okay, with that, I will now go ahead and I'm going to share my slides again, just very briefly. Okay, is everybody looking at slides? Yes. Okay. All right, so again, welcome to the conversation that we are having on the digital divide and how it impacts women. This is a part of the Bridging the Broadband Gap content campaign that is currently underway. It'll actually conclude with this event. The Bridging the Broadband Gap conversation has been underwritten by Hughes, and we are very grateful for their support. They have made it possible for us to have a robust conversation that lives on the SSPI website. It included podcasts, video content, and the soon to be released issue of the Orbiter, talking about all the ways that space and satellite helps to alleviate and to bridge the broadband gap. And so I want to thank once again Hughes for being our partner in making this happen. SSPI-WISE also thanks its sponsors, of which Hughes is also a sponsor of SSPI-WISE specifically, and as is Mansat. Thank you very much. And we now can also count ST Engineering as one of our supporters. Next month, we are doing a thing. This is a super exciting thing that's going to happen. International Women's Day, SSPI-WISE has held International Women's Day every year since its inception. This year, we are excited to have a hybrid event. This is going to be an event that will happen live in New York, thanks to the good offices of Hogan Lovells, who's making their New York offices available to us. And they are as well, we will also as well have it online via Zoom. These three women that you see are top women in the regulatory field of space and satellite. We have, heavens to Betsy, would I get the names wrong right now? Of course I would. We have Doreen Bogdan Martin, who is the very first Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union, ITU. We have the Director of Commercial Space, Commercial Space Policy at the U.S. National Space Council, Diane Howard. And we have the FCC Chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. They all three are going to be there at this event. That is a major thing. If you can be in New York for this event, be there. If you cannot, of course, we welcome you to be on the Zoom. And let's see if I've done this right. Yes, I have. There is the link so that you can register. All right, I didn't mean to stop sharing, but I got excited. So let's try that again. Okay, and now it's going to be my distinct pleasure to introduce our panel discussion. We have three distinguished panelists. I'm going to read their names, and while I'm reading their names, I'm going to spotlight them so that when I unshare my screen, you'll see them on the screen. So starting with Maria Hedden. Maria Hedden has over 20 years of executive profit and loss management experience working with some of the largest names in defense and mission critical communications. including BAE Systems and L3 Harris. She joined Comtech as the Chief Operating Officer in March 2022. Prior to that, she served as Senior Vice President, Operational Transformation for Leidos, where she was responsible for establishing a manufacturing excellence for a multi-billion-dollar product portfolio. We are grateful to have you. Welcome, Maria.
Thanks, Tamara.
Sharyn Nerenberg, Vice President of Corporate Marketing and Communications at Echostar. As Head of Corporate Marketing and Communications at Echostar Corporation, Sharyn Nerenberg leads public relations, thought leadership, branding, and messaging for the company and its HughesNet, and Echostar brands globally. Her team is responsible for planning, designing, messaging, and managing the company websites, trade shows, and events, social media content, corporate advertising, executive presentations, and media relations across consumer, business, domestic, and international markets. With both in-house and agency experience, Ms. Nerenberg's portfolio of past employers and clients include BroadSoft, which was acquired by Cisco, Intelsat, MCI Telecommunications, WorldCom, and GTE SpaceNet. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Pennsylvania Nerenberg School for Communication. Currently, she serves as the treasurer on the SSPI Board of Directors, and she leads the communications working group for the Satellite Industry Association. Welcome, Sharyn.
Thank you.
And finally, Dr. Heidi, and I should have asked her ahead of time, Dr. Heidi Thiemann, if I'm saying that wrong, please correct me, is the co-founder and director of the Space Skills Alliance, a think tank, consultancy, and backbone organization addressing the space skills gap. Since co-founding SSA in 2019, she has become recognized as a leader in the space skills landscape. Previously, she led the Cornwall Space and Aerospace Technology Training Program, developing the first national HNC/HND curriculum for the space sector and supporting local businesses to identify and fill their skills gap. Along with Space Skills co-founder Joseph Dudley, Heidi was named the 2022 UK Space and Satellite Personality of the Year in consideration of the massive impact to date on the discourse around space skills, especially in UK government. She holds a PhD in astrophysics from Open University and an Master of Physics. I'm going to go with Master of Physics in Physics with Space Science and Technology from the University of Leicester. And welcome, Heidi.
Thank you very much for having me. And I think the pronunciations are great.
Okay, thank you. I'm grateful for that because I'm super annoying about pronunciations. So thank you. All right, before we jump into our panel, we're going to go ahead and we're going to see a little video to kind of kick off our conversation. So I invite you to watch.
Millions of girls are missing. They are missing from school. They're missing from jobs. They are missing from the leadership of their communities and nations.
Okay, I just stopped sharing. Were you guys seeing a picture? Okay, let's fix that. That's so weird. Okay, we're gonna try that again because I really want you to see this video. All right, so share the screen, show the video, go.
Millions of girls are missing. They are missing from school. They're missing from jobs. They are missing from the leadership of their communities and nations.
Because I'm a girl. Because I'm a girl.
Because I am a girl, you might think that you know me.
You might think of a certain color.
Of a certain history.
You might think of a certain fashion
or a certain role in society.
They are missing because they live in places where just being a girl is hard. 12 million of them every year become child brides and teenage mothers. 130 million of them are not in school. Worldwide, girls are almost twice as likely as boys to miss out on education. Of the more than 600 million unemployed young people in the world, most are female.
But so much is changing.
so much is changing. All that is certain is you haven't seen the best of me.
These young women work with an organization called Plan International. Founded in 1937, it is one of the world's largest nonprofits fighting for children's rights and equality between women and men. It works with communities to tackle the fundamental reasons why women of all ages are missing. Education, training, and technology are its tools. In the Philippines, it helps local farmers, most of them women, create new markets for their products. In Nicaragua, it trains women in business and also how to protect themselves from violence so they can succeed as street vendors. In Bangladesh, it created a mobile app that lets traditional matchmakers learn the true age of brides and grooms. It stopped nearly 4,000 child marriages in its first 6 months. And everywhere, it trains women in leadership, management, and technology so they can become teachers to others. Training has reached more than 6,000 women in 150 countries, and they are changing the world, one community at a time. Plan International's mission takes it to places where basic communications can be a big challenge. That is why, for more than a decade, it has worked with a company called ITC Global to connect 24 of its operational sites across Western and Central Africa. High-quality connections let Plan International coordinate work across more than a dozen nations while keeping its operations lean and efficient. ITC Global equips sites like these with its office-in-a-box solution, a small, powerful satellite communications terminal that provides Wi-Fi, internet access, and telephone service. Satellite can be complicated, but ITC Global makes it simple with local installation and maintenance from 5 African regional offices and quality monitoring around the clock. If women everywhere had the same job opportunities as men, it would give the world a $28 trillion economic boost. Today, Plan International is making a serious down payment on that promise. Its goal? To transform the lives of 100 million girls for the better in just 5 years. ITC Global helps make that goal a reality with a satellite network that lets the dedicated people of Plan International bring millions of girls and women into the light. Satellite, the world's invisible, indispensable technology. Brought to you by Space and Satellite Professionals International with the support of ITC Global.
Okay. Thank you for letting me share that. That is part of our Better Satellite World campaign. If you go to the Bridging the Broadband Gap campaign, you will see that we have numerous videos that talk about how our industry is doing good in the world. And you'll also see the one of the most recent ones, which was put out by our own Hughes about bridging the broadband gap. But that one was specifically about women. And I want to lead off with this question to all of you. That video was produced back in 2019. And so here's the question to you. What's changed? Have we made progress since then? And has satellite had an impact in making progress? And I throw it out to all of you.
Well, I think in thinking about this whole program and the topic for today, I guess I want to start by saying that at Hughes, obviously, we're very focused on bridging the broadband gap, bridging the digital divide at the Hughes company and also our parent company, Echostar. And I have to be perfectly honest, in working on the Bridging the Broadband Gap campaign with you all, And just in our general work, I don't know that we've really ever looked at the situation through the gender lens before. So I really appreciated the opportunity that this conversation presented to ask my colleagues and reach out and learn a little bit more about some of the many programs that we have going on in many of our rural and hard to reach markets, and some of the governments that we work with and so forth. And hopefully we're opening up a new avenue for conversation among ourselves and with our customers worldwide. So to get to the question in terms of what's changed, first, I'm thoroughly impressed by Plan International. I think what they do is wonderful and so important. Crisis after crisis that they've been helping girls and women through. And the most recent one, when you ask what's changed since 2019, the big change is that we had COVID. And in a lot of ways, when it comes to digital access, COVID actually kind of leveled the playing field, because those who could get access had to get it. And those who previously couldn't needed to figure out a way that they could. And so I think that because everyone was affected in every market, in every gender, every color, everything, I think it was something that we all had to grapple with, women, men, everybody. But when you look at the data and you kind of look at where we are today, it didn't solve the gender gap. That still exists. And in a lot of ways, as I was doing some research for this meeting today, COVID really affected women's lives disproportionately. So you could ask the question of if women are even worse off a few years later than they were before.
I think there's some really fascinating points in there, and it's that unexpected natural disaster that I think has ended up driving a lot of technological change. And I think if we look, I'm going to go from a bit of a Eurocentric point of view, but we've got the war in Ukraine, we've had earthquakes in Turkey, we've had the issues with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and trying to get refugees and out of a country that's dangerous. All of that has been enabled by satellite technology. And we look at where we couldn't do these things years ago before we had things like Starlink, for example. Actually, the impact that has had on enabling access to people and enabling people to get to safe locations has been so important. And I think we've seen that, especially with the earthquakes in Turkey, we know that natural disasters often affect women a lot more because of the need of getting medical attention, access for young children, and often being in caring positions. Having that satellite access to enable them to get medical information or get the kind of the UN envoys and others out to them has been so important. So I think that we look at the benefits it's brought now and the things it couldn't do a while ago, and I think that's one of the kind of biggest change for me.
Yeah, I agree both with what Sharyn and Heidi have talked about. And when you think about it, to the point about COVID, think of how many children started going back to school and did not, even in the US and globally, did not have access to internet. And particularly for young women, those a lot of times just learning the very basics of how to go do stuff. Boys tend to like to tinker more, and they're willing to fail, and so they're willing to try things a little bit more than what women or young girls do. And so you see that young girls are using this technology, but just at a very basic rudimentary level, and not at in some ways you're starting to see more girls in the STEM fields and in IT, because that piece of it's starting to grow more. Because there is that ability to go use that technology. So I think that's great. But I still think it's not at the same pace as boys in the world.
Definitely. So I pulled a few stats. One that struck me, and this is, I don't know what the date was, but it's a recent one. It's post-COVID, that women are 21% less likely to be online than men. And in least developed countries, they're half as likely. to be online as men. And that was from the World Economic Forum, if anybody's needs to know.
Yeah, no, I thank you for bringing that statistic forward, because that was one of my questions, right? I'm going to throw up a poll, and everybody can respond to the poll. Unfortunately, if you're made a co-host, you can't, so I apologize in advance. But I'm going to launch the poll and see what we think, because Sharyn, you raised a couple of good points that I want to pull out. One was that you mentioned that, you know, your company wasn't necessarily looking at things through a gender lens as thinking about addressing the digital divide. And I wonder if if that's a thing, right? Have other companies addressed themselves? And did we even know that there was such a thing, right? Because when we first brought up the idea of having this conversation, some of the responses were, what gender digital divide? That was some of the response that we got. As we were thinking about having this conversation, there was like a surprise that there was even such a thing. So I'm asking the audience to chime in. Did you know that there was any such thing? And I'm asking, you know, like Maria, has your company had a chance to think about it specifically through this lens? Or is this an area where we have an opportunity to raise some awareness internally as with our companies?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an area that we need to raise more awareness, particularly in this industry. I think that there's a lot, again, because of it being, you know, so technology focused, you know, just getting girls interested in wanting to do the kind of you know, engineering and sciences that we have today, and getting that interest. And then also being able to understand the benefits. So, you know, one of the things that we're doing at Comtech is really being able to, because we do both 911 communications through the 5G networks, but also with satellites, being able to bridge the two and providing that capability so that you can have, you know, cell phone service and streaming services when you don't necessarily have the best cell phone reception. So how can we provide that capability more effectively across the board so that we can get young women the access they need so that they can be curious, they can find out what's going on in different parts of the world that they might not have even thought of because they have access to the internet.
So let me just throw this question out. Again, this is to Sharyn's statistic that 21% of women are less likely to have access or to use digital tools, and in underdeveloped countries, it's a higher percentage, 51%. So I think that people do assume that gender digital divide is largely a problem of poverty or of undeveloped nations. Can we speak to what that gender divide looks like in nations like our own, here in the United States or in the UK, which are not poor, underdeveloped countries? Heidi, can I kick that over to you?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to pick up on 2 points. Partly, it's the rural communities across the world, however developed the world is, that are really suffering from that lack of access to the internet. So an example that is really close to home with me, location-wise, is there's a fantastic earth station just down the road from me called Goonhilly Earth Station. And they're I think worldwide famous. They're brilliant. They are now the world's only private deep space network. They do fantastic work. But what they're also doing really locally is working with our National Health Service to make sure that people in rural coastal communities have access to the internet, because actually it's really surprising driving through some rural areas and you just cannot get cell phone signal. You cannot pick up anything. And this is a real issue for trying to get ambulances through to the right location. There's a lot of unpaid carers as well, and these tend to again be women who are trying to care for relatives and they cannot get signal, cannot get in touch with them in an emergency. So Goonhilly have been brilliant working on National Health Service on that. But I also think there's another angle in the digital divide, which is less about access and more about the experience. And I think what growing internet use has shown is that I think women tend to receive more abuse online. and be put in positions which can be really quite threatening. So there's an MP, a member of parliament in the UK called Diane Abbott, and she was the first ever Black female MP. And she, 1 year before an election, she got 50% of all online abuse to members of parliament.
Wow.
And that sort of access, whilst women may have access, equal access in developing nations, I think the experience of that access can be really different. So I think those are two areas I'd probably like to highlight in more developing worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Heidi, I'm just gonna, more than any other thing that I read, it was that one that hit home for me. This idea that even in countries like our own, where we do in fact have access and can use the internet, but it's actually very frequently a hostile environment for us. And it was one of those things that hit rather visceral, right? Because it's a thing that we know, but it's a thing that we don't always talk about. The way that women are targeted, that when there's sexual predation, it's usually against women and girls, not exclusive, but usual. That there's a whole swath of harassment just because we dared to show up. It's like, who said you can be there in our digital spaces, women? And you know, this is not a thing that technology can solve, I don't think, but let me just ask the question: is there a technological way to address the question? Let's ask that question. I'll throw that out to everybody, because I don't know, right? I start with the assumption that no, that's not a technological problem, but maybe.
It's such a big area of concern. You know, it covers so many different aspects. You know, you think about right now, the US Supreme Court is hearing a case about whether to hold YouTube and Google responsible for a young woman's death as a result of terrorist videos that were shown to people who were who ultimately committed crimes. You know, that's how the algorithms work. And the assertion that somehow YouTube is responsible because of the site's promotion of the terrorist videos. And that's a huge question. And, you know, it's so you can see how that same kind of, you know, or danger can apply to women in all sorts of situations. And then so that's one aspect, which I don't know what the answer is. It's something, hopefully the Supreme Court will figure it out, because I think it's something that matters to us all, not just as people who work in this industry in delivering internet access, but also just as women and citizens in our societies. But I think the other piece of it is this idea of personal safety in the physical world also. You know, Heidi mentioned, you know, bringing access to low-income women, you know, right, you know, in rural areas right near where she is. And a lot of, you know, we hear a lot of stories, and my colleagues in Latin America were able to share a lot of different stories with me about women in Latin America who would have to walk, you know, for long distances to get to school. Or I have a mother and a woman in Peru who had to walk with her children through mountains in order to get access to the internet. And you can imagine that not only was it hard for them to do homework and do work, but it's also not necessarily the safest thing to do. And so having access to the internet via satellite through HughesNet service helps them, you know, be able to be a little bit more safe.
Maria, what do you wanna what are your thoughts on this issue of safety for women digitally?
Yeah, I think, you know, and somebody put it in the chat too. You know, the thing with women is that a lot of times it's even by other women. I mean, that's so true. It's like, you know, especially teenage girls, the amount of harassment that they get from both from their friend, you know, their friends from school, everything. Just being able to have things that has the ability to moderate some of that, to be able to protect our children, and to stop some of either the abuse or the bullying or the, you know, putting themselves at risk. And some of it is, you know, just trying to feel part of something. And the more that we can have more friendly opportunities for our children, and being able to give them other avenues that they can use to in a positive way is really important, so that they can see the positive side of the internet and how to use it properly and how to protect yourselves. We have self-defense classes for kids and for adults. How about a self-defense class online, and how to protect yourself from bad things happening to you.
Absolutely. And I think that's important for boys and girls. I'm a mother of 2 young men now. And that was such an important part of, thankfully, their schooling growing up. They were just at the beginning of the digital world that our kids in our more developed, parts of the world are living in. And, kind of navigating through all of that with them was really interesting and challenging, but it was so important that they understand, not only how to keep themselves safe, but also to be aware of some of these issues about women, so they can be on the lookout for it and be careful that they're not perpetrating anything that they don't, unintentionally.
Yeah. I did a thing, and okay, you may notice that my eyebrows all of a sudden are very strange. But I was making a point, which is that one of the safety issues, of course, for women is that there's a lot of pressure on how we look, right? And so there's the whole question of whether or not Instagram and things like that are actually harmful, especially to teenage girls, because of the way that it curates how you're supposedly supposed to look. And so this is actually a danger to women, to young women who are actually committing suicide or getting eating disorders and so forth, because the internet says you're supposed to look like X, Y, and Z, and that's a curated look. I just gave myself eyebrows just now with a click of a button, right? That's a very curated look. It's not real, but we become very addicted to our own appearance online. And sometimes I wonder if the women who are not online are doing better than us, because wow, I suffer a lot about, oh my God, I have to be on camera, okay, hair, makeup, the whole thing. It becomes a thing. And that, that's a lot of pressure on women. And I don't know, the men can tell us too, the men who are in the room can tell us in the chats, do you have this issue? Are you struggling with, okay, I have to be on camera, I have to look like this, I have to do hair and makeup. Do you guys go through this? I'm going to bet the answer to that question is mostly no. But I could be wrong, but I'd love to hear it. But I'm just really amazed at the number of things that become things when we actually turn an attentive lens to how our technology is impacting women specifically. When we think about it, there's all of a sudden lots to see. Okay, I have now gotten off of my soapbox. Yeah, listen, let me just put this thought out here. Sharyn, one place that our industry is super well represented in is, of course, in the marketing field, right? A lot of women start out in some kind of marketing and then transition into more technical fields or leadership positions in the industry. But a lot of women are in marketing, and including yourself, right? Communications and marketing. And so I wonder if there's a place, right? Because of our dominance in this particular space within the space and satellite industry, is there an opportunity for us as women to raise the profile as women who control a lot of the communications in our industry? How do we leverage that to be useful?
I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. And I think that's what was so exciting about the formation of SSPI-WISE. I don't think that we're just talking to ourselves. I think we're becoming, it's a movement that I think the rest of the industry is paying attention to. And yes, a lot of women, come into the industry through marketing or human resources, but there are also a lot of women who come into it through engineering also. At Echostar, 25% of our employees are women. As far as the engineering talents, it's about 17%, which matches the average of engineering talents in the US in terms of the gender divide. And, you know, I know personally, I've worked hard to champion, you know, help champion the cause of women in our organization to hopefully, you know, shine a spotlight on programs like this and digital divides that are, you know, have a different impact on women than on men. We have a women's impact network within our company where women come together to have the same kind of conversations that we do through SSPI-WISE.
Yeah. Everybody can jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, so just to build on that a little bit, you know, as far as the, you know, the number of people in marketing and comms, you know, that's the perfect opportunity because, you know, that power of the pen or the power of the voice, being able to share stories and to be able to promote some of the things that other women in this space is doing is an awesome opportunity. And, you know, just being able, you know, again, building that network of people and sharing that network of period and being able to highlight, you know, some of the things that are going on. We're actually focused on even, you know, how do you do things through some of the schools and getting girls, you know, young girls, you know, going to the schools and talking to them about, you know, some of the things going on in the industry and why it's cool and exciting to want to be in this industry and be part of something that is really cool. And it's something that's actually, you know, it's meaningful. So being able to provide, you know, something that's a security and tools for everybody is so important, and it makes what you do matter. And I think that's the exciting thing about being part of this industry.
I'd really like to pick up on the point around schools because I think that's really important as well. And it's by a nice coincidence, we've got a report coming out next week which looks at why people join the space industry and what really inspired them. And I was just checking my stats here, but actually it was at school, 30% of girls in the space industry, or women now working in the space industry, said they were inspired at school versus 20% of boys. So I think it really kind of pushes home that point of if we can use our powers of marketing to get into schools and actually show really great female role models to young girls, we're going to have a really great industry down the line.
That's great. I can add a couple of other ways, at least here at Hughes and Echostar. I mentioned one story from Latin America, but our Latin America teams, and I'm going to say that a lot of this programming in particular came from women who work for us in these different markets in Colombia, in Mexico, in Chile, and Peru. And it's a program called Connecting Dreams, for Conectando Sueños. And it's a wonderful program to give free internet access to deserving people, not based on gender, but the stories that come back of, you know, the impact on people's lives, and the women that we've been able to help has been really touching and important, and, you know, helping a lot of people get to the education that they need, whether they're school children or college students, or I mentioned one instance of a teacher. And then the other thing that I want to share is the idea of, you know, STEM leadership and, you know, encouraging women to get involved in, you know, STEM studies early on. And I think, you know, there are all sorts of programs, I think, you know, that go on. You know, we have a partnership with National 4-H here in the US, and we sponsored a young woman who won an award for her work with a robotics team, so that she can have some support going to college, so that she can hopefully do more of that and join us here in this industry or some other similar STEM related field.
I'm just going to pause for a moment. First of all, I want to share with everybody the results of our poll. It's pretty interesting, so let's share that. Hopefully you're seeing it, but apparently slightly more than half of us were not aware that there was any such thing as a gender digital divide before hearing about this session. And I'm impressed because I thought there must be, but I wasn't sure if there was. So I'm glad to know that at least 45% of us did know that. And I'm glad that we're all here and having this conversation right now. If there are any questions, of course, please post them in the chats. We're happy to surface them. But I wanna ask, we're at the quarter before we're supposed to end. So I just want to throw this question out to the three of you. As we think, well, actually, I want to pause. I want to come up with a whole new question. I'm going to hope that I can ask it just right. But we're in this room, and one of the gentlemen who's in the room with us said, "Hey, where are the rest of the fellas?" Which, right? Where are they? We advertised that this was open to everybody. So where are the men? Do we feel that we can effectively solve the gender digital divide without the participation of our men and our male allies, or and how do we get them on board? What do we need to do? So just I'm interested, in anybody can answer.
Well, I can say from a marketer's perspective, from a communications perspective, I think it's about, calling attention to it, and just by reaching out to my colleagues to ask them for input, as I was preparing for this, I think, hopefully that triggers some thinking, how do we make this, part of our priorities. And in fact, there's actually my colleagues in India recently turned on connectivity at over 5,000 remote their community offices, basically almost tiny community centers, like government offices. And it's part of a program that's supporting something with the Ministry of Women and Child Development in India. It's part of their overall Digital India initiative. So it's not like it was directly related to the Women and Child Development Program, but it's, he called it a horizontal program that supports it along the way. And I think, I think every step we can take is a step that gets us closer to where we need to be. And I think, shining a spotlight on it, drawing attention to it like we're doing today, I think is really important.
I think back, as far as including, I think it's really important. So as a mother of a daughter and two boys, I think, as I've talked to my kids, getting my boys to understand and even my daughter to see things different through a different lens. I think diversity of thought is so important, and really, how other people take our words and how we share our knowledge. And even in the professional world, the more you you work with women to help both women and men, and create that environment so that people can actually share their thoughts, is so important and critical, so that you do get that diversity of thought across, and that thought leadership across, and being able to drive that into our discussions that we have. Again, some of those mentorships, having mentorships where, you have it's a male female, and, having that so that there's that change. Sometimes, like, I actually preferred sometimes working with a male mentor or teammate, because I would get to see things from their way. And, they would share with me, how they would interpret things that I wouldn't even think of. So I think it's really important to have those different voices in the room.
Hear, hear. Yes.
I'd absolutely agree. And I think the thing I would add as well is sometimes with panels and talks around gender or diversity, or issues which aren't seen as, we're not solving a technological problem in this immediate section. Often they get shunted to the back of a conference, or the one before the drinks reception, so everyone heads off. Actually, I think trying to get those bang in the center of the day, making sure that they are amongst the technical talks, amongst every other talk that people, they will stay for it and they will listen. But I think if we always put diversity to the last one of the day, we're always going to miss out on it. And I think another point as well is sometimes people, when they see a group which isn't theirs, they might struggle to think, well, what's the benefit for me to actually join? So I know that if I was maybe invited to an event for women of color, I'd feel a bit like, maybe not my space, but actually there's probably some things I can support, or I can kind of raise people's voices up. And actually kind of maybe showing people who aren't in that realm the benefit of what they can do and how they can support people. It's people are selfish inherently, aren't they? So sometimes you always want to like, right, how can I do a thing? But I know that's always not the right message, but it does help get people involved.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I love this thought about not segregating the idea of diversity into its own little camp, right? Because where does it not belong? Where does that conversation not belong? We're talking about the gender digital divide. It is a real thing, but we're also seeing, at least I think we're seeing, that if when we're thinking about anything at all, we don't pause to say, okay, have we thought about how this is impacting women? Have we thought about whether or not poor people are actually going to be able to use this product that we're creating? If we aren't thinking about those things proactively, we're first of all, we're doing ourselves a disservice, right? How much money are we leaving off the table? Did that video say there were billions of dollars lost to the economy because of the exclusion of women? Right? I mean, I feel like, thank you, Trillion. Thank you, Maria. I feel like, you know, we should start really amplifying this message that no, we're not talking about doing something extra. We're talking about doing something important that matters to our bottom line, that matters to the effectiveness of our product and marketing. It matters that we think about all the ways that things touch us and that we think of all of us, you know? Holy Christmas, I need to stop preaching. Okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, so last question for the group, and I would love to hear from each of you. What's one thing that you would like us to take away as we consider helping women and girls to bridge the digital divide? What should we walk away from this meeting with our thoughts or with takeaway action or anything? What would you like us to take? I'll start with Maria.
Okay. So for me, it's really, get involved, get involved at any level out there and really try to be that, be a face to people and be visible to people and make yourself available to young girls and showing them what they could do and opening their eyes to new things. I mean, everything from technology to even, from a business perspective, introduce them to sports that men might have done, like golf, so a lot of business deals happen with golf and a lot of girls don't go into golf. So, and they miss out because they don't, I'm too afraid of embarrassing myself because I might not do a very good job. So, put yourself out there and help set that example for young women is the thing I would say.
Thank you. Over to you, Heidi.
I would completely agree with that. I'm going to try and choose another one though, because I think that's such a great answer. I would say it's maybe around the public. I think the public don't realize how much of an impact satellites have on digital connectivity. Whereas we look at photos in the newspaper of war zones or natural crises, and they've all come from satellites. People have been connected because of satellite technology. And actually, I think if we as a space industry are able to shout about the benefits that does a bit more, we're going to encourage girls in particular to come into an industry which benefits humankind. And I think that's something that we can do. It will take a long time and we'll have to keep shouting about it, but I think it's worth doing.
Thank you. Sharyn, over to you.
Well, I agree with all of what you said, so I have to come up with something different. But I guess, I think maybe we can all use this as kind of a springboard or an, I don't know, an inspiration perhaps to just kind of keep this, gender digital divide in our minds as we go back to our regular day jobs in this industry. And let's all try and look at the problems that we're working to solve with satellite, which is so remarkable and magical and incredible. And just kind of give a little bit of a different color as we look at how we can solve these problems. I think we can all take a little bit of that along with us.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna answer the question too, on behalf of the Elevating Women team. And this is kind of saying what you all have said, but I want to be really specific. Every time that we as women step up to do a thing, we're making it possible for women to do it. Every time that it's not unusual for a woman to do things, the next woman can, right? So do stuff, step up to the plate, be willing. When you're asked to be in front, and, raising my hand as the person who tries not to, but, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Be in front but really importantly, speak, right? I'm a firm believer that if you step on my toe, it's me who says ouch. That's my philosophy. So as a woman, if I think that women are being left out, I'm going to say something because it's affecting me. You may not know how it affects you if you're not a woman. You may not know, but I'm happy to tell you. But definitely I know it affects me. So I'm going to speak. So speak because, in whatever little way that you bring up a point, we don't have to have it be a situation where our companies don't know that there's a gender digital divide. Oh, of course they know. I was there and I told them so. So with that, I'm just going to ask everybody to go look right down at your reactions on the screen and give these amazing women a loud round of applause because you are all amazing. And I'm really grateful for your support and for your contribution to this conversation. I have nothing else. I was checking to see if there were questions, but I don't see questions. Oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna pause. Purva Mandal, if you would like to unmute yourself and make your comment, I welcome that right now before we close out.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, lovely. I'm using my AirPods for the first time with my Dell laptop. For the meeting. So.
Okay.
So my comment was, I know we have a lot of beautiful thoughts have been made on digital divide, but as the word is digital divide, I'm trying to see it only from the perspective of women that in the digital world, when I go out and I talk with other women, I see there is a huge gap of knowledge and the technology and what is going on right there in the industry. And everyone has their own experiences, own exposure, own set of skills. And if we all come out and be more involved, have conversations, get together, then I think sharing that knowledge the knowledge sharing will bring, it will bring benefit for all of us. We will learn from each other. It will make us more comfortable to talk about things. And in turn, any kind of divide, whether it's digital, whether it's gender, whether it's any kind of divide, it will all be resolved. Because how I have seen is if women generally don't mix a lot and they don't, they might be in their groups, but recently, like we have just started Edela, Sharif, and a few of us that we are trying to meet every other second week, and it's open to all the women of Echostar. And this helps so much to understand actually what the company is doing across the departments. We have Jupiter 3 going on, we have Fusion going on, but I have some set of knowledge, and there are many moving parts. Fusion is a feature, okay, it's a very cute one single web, but oh my God, so much has been going on behind it, and all the teams, what they're doing. So coming back to the point, when we meet like this, we share the knowledge, we understand who is doing what, we learn so much, and that actually builds a self-confidence and a conscious like what the other person is doing, and you get more involved, and there's different kind of confidence you develop. And I think confidence is very necessary in order to bridge any kind of gaps or remove any kind of divide. And the collaboration, what I'm drilling down to is the collaboration. If we have more collaboration as women together, I think any kind of divide can be easily resolved.
Thank you so much. And did I pronounce your name correctly, by the way? I just want to double
yes,
check.
yes, you did pronounce it absolutely right. And
Okay.
I think,
I-
yeah.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
that
so
comment.
much.
So I just want to we are at the 3:01 mark, which means we really are technically over. So I don't want to hold everybody. I want to be respectful of our time, and I thank you all for making the time. What I heard, and let's try to make sure I get it right again. Let's look at it. Apurva, what I heard Apurva say is that we have the opportunity to come together and share just from wherever we are, right? Whatever we have to contribute, that we share it with one another, and it expands the knowledge base and expands our level of confidence, because we know more about how everything fits together, and we close gaps just by being together. I think that's what I heard. And I thank you very much for that thought. And I think that's what SSPI-WISE is actually all about. So let's keep doing it. So with that, thank you, Sharyn. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Heidi, for making this a wonderful conversation. And I'm stealing Lou's catchphrase. Let's all go out there and make it a better satellite world. Have a great today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.